My route into pay was kind of a little bit different from most people. So I started off in accountancy. That's what my career development officer at school always said I'd be good at, numbers. And I don't remember them ever talking about payroll as part of that. So I started off in accountancy. I was a qualified accountant, and I really enjoyed about that role, the control of the numbers. I really liked to know that things were being done to the rules and that things were either right or wrong ultimately. Things either added up or they didn't. So that's what always appealed about accountancy to me. So by chance, what happened is within our finance department, the two most senior individuals went off on maternity leave, leaving an opportunity within payroll, which my manager at the time said would be a great development opportunity and another string to my bow to go and run the function. I'm sure that was a double-edged sword of it also served good purpose because I think they knew that I would get underneath it, want to know how it's put together. So off I went to payroll. And that was really my first introduction to CIPP. It was a crash course in, all of a sudden I'm the interim payroll manager and I've never done payroll before. So off I went to go and learn the foundations of, well, how all these statutory payments being calculated, how do we end up, dealing with money and pay and paying people. So that was really how I sort of found my feet within payroll at a very rapid pace and having to be an expert when I really wasn't ready for that. So very much accelerated. And then sort of as my career's progressed, payroll's been my sort of steady consistency within my career. It's always been my go-to. In many ways, it's my comfort blanket that, when I start a new position in an organization, payroll's always been there but I can understand this. I know what's happening. So it helps you feel at home very quickly. And I'll always say, for me, it's really helped me understand businesses. If you want to know what's going on and how an organization ticks, go look at the information in payroll. You'll understand, are we paying salaries? Are we paying lots of overtime? What's sickness, maternity look like? So that data that comes out of payroll is really rich for just getting to understand how a business is working. So, I now find myself as a director of people and culture. 100% in any organization I'll go into, I'll always make sure that pay, and not just in the payroll aspect, but the pay, the pensions, the rewards, really the employee experience is all sat within my function, because for me, that is the end of the line. It is what we'll always get judged on. And for anything else that we do for employees, at the end of the day, if we get the pay wrong, that's what you get remembered for. So, attention to detail, the accuracy that we instill within our professionals in payroll, that's why we do it. Because if not, that's what you're going to get remembered for, not for anything else that you've done. So I've progressed to having, a wide portfolio now, looking after learning and development, recruitment, people services, organizational development, but still, my soft spot will always be for pay and what the professionals stand for. Over the years, I've been a CIPP member. It's been a professional body that's given back to me an awful lot. So, I am a member of other professional bodies through my accountancy and through my HR backgrounds, but CIPP is always a professional body that I'll always say I'm a member of, and I almost sort of disconnect from the other two. And I think what it's always given me is a sense of community, and that's community through networking events, that's community through special interest groups and like topics, that's community through types of organisation. And it's always been, a professional body that I always feel that you can go to for support. So, I've gone through my professional development with CIPP all the way through level 5, level 7, and even in my early days when I'm learning the basics. But I've always felt that there's somebody there to reach out to, whether that's a peer also going through it or whether that's somebody from CIPP. But there's always support there to just guide you through it. So I guess ultimately, whether that's through communities, through networks, through support, but you never feel that you're on your own. You always feel like, you've entered into a society almost where everybody's looking out for each other rather than it's just a membership that kind of is a faceless membership. So for me, CIPP's always been there. I guess from a compliance side, it's always kept me up to date with what's coming next. It's meant I can take it back to the workplace. I can have an impact. I can be involved in decision making. But mostly, I've got real trusted friends within my CIPP community who nowadays, it's through things like WhatsApp channels, but there's always somebody there to give you some advice, to guide you through, or just to offer that bit of support that you're not on your own with this scenario. We've been there as well. I think for me, chartered membership was just a really important aspect of the membership to almost prove to myself that I could do it. So for me, being a chartered member was almost a personal aspect of, I think in my role, I can demonstrate all these competencies, but wouldn't it be great to just actually prove that I can do it? So, I set off on my mission to be chartered, very much having completed my master's. It was then for me very much taking that learning away to demonstrate that through my individual chartered status as well. So, a bit like a lot of my learning has been, it's certainly helped me progress throughout my career. But, as an individual who is quite competitive and likes to prove that I can do something, it's a great framework for saying, against what we consider to be, great examples of behaviors, not only competences, but also those behaviors that are important to being a good professional and a good leader of others. For me, it was about, proving that I could do it to myself. What I did get out of it then was this sense of being, with other individuals who are equally, been through that same journey, or at a very similar level. And, you learn from them, you learn a lot and take away from it. So I guess it opened up a different community to me. But at the time, it was very much about me just wanting to, almost test myself and prove to myself that I was at that level. The process to becoming chartered is one which I actually found quite enjoyable. It is very much almost like a reflective point of looking back at your career, looking at what you're being asked to demonstrate, and then thinking about those different experiences that you've had in terms of how you can support it and evidence it. So for me, it was actually, a good process to go through. It allowed me to pull on perhaps different experiences that have happened in my career that actually at the time I didn't really appreciate what the thought process or what the thinking was behind it. And it also allowed me to reflect on, other leaders that I've worked with and to draw on what their experiences were. So I actually really enjoyed the application to becoming a chartered member, but because it gives you a chance to reflect on what you've done, look at things through a different lens, think sometimes about how you might have done things differently to demonstrate that broader way of thinking. But the process for me in itself was quite an enjoyable one. And, CIPP again, always there as a critical friend, just to be supportive of challenging back and going, but have you demonstrated this? Or can you think of other examples where you can demonstrate, a skill or a behavior attached to those leadership competencies? So, a reflective process, one that is almost like writing your memoirs of your career to date, but a really enjoyable one for me.